The West Coast Main Line, London Euston to Milton Keynes route in TSW5 did not have a particularly smooth launch, to put it mildly. In the time since this route was released, numerous updates have been made, so I thought it was time to check in on the add-on and see if it's any better now. Normally, I have a fairly substantial timetable mod and enhancement pack installed for WCML South, but I reverted the route to a mostly default state for part of this video's production. However, I kept the Class 350's branding patch installed throughout production because I really don't like how that unit looks without the realistic LNWR branding. WCML London to Milton Keynes was initially released in September 2024, as one of 3 core routes in the TrainSim World 5 package. I will keep my original review of this route public, so that you can be reminded of the state in which this route was initially released. On Steam, the base TSW5 package costs $71.49 NZD at full price, but if you get a specific regional bundle that doesn't include the WCML route, then it's available as a standalone add-on for a fairly steep 57 New Zealand dollars at full price. Why does a single route add-on often cost as much as $57 or even $64, especially given that the base game, as I said earlier, is $71, and that gives you 3 routes? 4 motive power types are included with WCML South, but they're mostly reused or modified from previous add-ons, with the Class 350-1 Desiro being the only new addition. The situation with the Class 350 is not helped by the fact that she was initially released without the new suspension physics, or neutral section functionality for that matter, and for some reason, only one variant of this class is included in the TSW add-on. There are 87 units in this class, with only 30 of them being designated as 350-1. The remainder is made up of 37 examples of the 350-2 variant, along with 10 examples each for the 350-3 and 350-4 variants. Dovetail's decision to only include the 350-1 and act like the other 3 variants don't exist has never made sense to me. As for the other motive power that comes with the route, you get the Class 66 diesel locomotive, which has now been reused so many times that it's not funny, the 1972 tube stock, which was reused from the Bakerloo line add-on of 2020, and the Class 377-2 Electrostar, this being a dual voltage variant modified from the 377-4 model, which we already had with East Coastway and Brighton Mainline. To this day, we still have only 2 variants of the Class 377 officially in TrainSim World, with one of those missing variants being the 3-car 377-3. Make of that situation what you will. DTG also modelled the Class 390 for the TSW version of WCML South, but they put this thing up as a separately sold add-on instead of including it with the base route. In my opinion, that was quite a scummy move on Dovetail's part because the Class 390 is a crucial part of the modern WCML rail scene. Granted, the additional purchase is still technically optional, and I dare say some people will try to say, no one's forcing you to buy it, as if that makes any DLC instantly immune to criticism, but the in-game routes would simply look and feel wrong/incomplete without the Class 390, so that purchase is effectively mandatory. As much as I want that sort of thing to never happen again, this is Dovetail Games we're talking about, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like making a London to Peterborough route, but have the Class 91 electric locomotive as a separate purchase. In any case, the Class 91 and Mark IV coaches have been highly requested as a TSW add-on for a long time now. Come to think of it, the Class 390's situation in TSW is not helped by the special liveries worn by Units 390-119 and 390-121 being omitted from the base pack. Fortunately, they have both been added as part of the enhancement pack available on the Train Sim community website, but of course those are not official additions. Curiously, the EP also includes a depiction of the Class 805 Evero, built on the Class 801 from ECML Peterborough to Doncaster, and even the Eurovision livery worn by Class 350-1, number 350-104, which I saw at least twice in real life. Something that always baffled me was DTG's decision to cut the route coverage at Milton Keynes. This station is only around 49 3/4 miles from London Euston, and cutting the route coverage here makes the Class 390 feel like a caged animal, because you're only able to drive the unit for no more than around 35 minutes at a time. This is pretty disappointing, especially given that, in my opinion, the Class 390 is actually one of Dovetail's better trains where overall quality is concerned. I'm so used to using the timetable mod that it was harder to get used to running the default timetable again. I would mention the modder's username, but I don't know how to pronounce it. In any case, it's spelt FAWX. As it stands now, the default timetable mode features 244 playable services for the Class 350-1, 36 for the Class 377-2, 29 for the Class 66, 109 for the Class 390, 350 for the 1972 tube stock, and, if I recall correctly, 84 for the Class 710 Aventra. The Class 710 is included in the Gospel Oak to Barking Riverside add-on, so you'll need to own that pack in order to run services on the Watford DC line, which mostly runs parallel to the West Coast main line between London Euston and Watford Junction. Thinking back to the timetable overall, the mod that FAWX made still blasts the default one out of the water. I'm no expert on the real timetable for Avanti West Coast and LNWR services, but even I think the default timetable we get in TSW makes the route feel too quiet. While the Class 710 now has more services than she used to, the Watford DC line's timetable is still way too quiet, at least in its default state. You still get gaps in the service as large as 45 minutes, which is ridiculous for a line that's supposed to have trains consistently running every 15 minutes throughout the day. By contrast, the default Bakerloo line timetable seems more complete. It has services to Harrow and Wealdstone running every 15 minutes throughout the day, as is the case in real life, while those that terminate short at Stonebridge Park run every 13 to 15 minutes, although I could have sworn that they were actually meant to be every 10 minutes. In any case, and much to my disappointment, the underground section south of Queen's Park is not included in the WCML South add-on. You can only get it as part of the original Bakerloo line add-on of August 2020. Unless Dovetail ever updates the original route to have 350s and 390s running on the WCML tracks, then you'll just have to do route hopping at Queen's Park if you want to run a full-length Bakerloo line service. Besides the Spartan timetable, another major issue with the original release of this route was the appearance of only a single 4-car unit on just about every LNWR service, which is rather unrealistic. Indeed, I mainly saw 350s running in 8 or 12 car formations on the real WCML, and hardly ever saw a unit running solo. Incidentally, I even saw some 350-2 units still running in the old London Midland livery, something I doubt we'd ever get in TSW, even if the missing 350 variants were ever added. I even got to ride a 350-2 at one point, and let's just say that I'm not a fan of the 3x2 seating layout. Thinking back to the 350s in TSW, they now appear to be running mostly in 8 and 12 car formations after the updates to the default route and timetable, but that issue with the short form services should have been fixed before the add-on's release. As for the freight services, I suppose it's good to see them on the WCML and TSW at all, but after seeing numerous freight trains on the real line, I can tell you that A, not all of them are container trains, like what you get with the default timetable, and B, it's unrealistic to only see either the EWS or DB Cargo UK liveries every single time a Class 66 shows up. Freightliner and GBRF liveries are included with the WCML enhancement pack, but for some reason, I can't get the GBRF liveries to appear on my end without them crashing my game. As an aside, there is no depiction of the re-geared Class 66-6 variant in TSW, only the original 66-0, like this one you're looking at now, and DTG haven't bothered modelling the new LED light clusters either. Thinking back to the Class 377-2, while her appearance on this route is welcome, you're only able to drive the unit for around 14 minutes between Watford Junction and Wembley Central. As such, I hardly ever bother driving the southern service on WCML South. Incidentally, while I did see Southern's unusual Watford service a few times in real life, I never saw it operated by a 377-2, only the newer 377-7 units. Disappointingly, the 377-2 doesn't have a timetable mode layer on the East Coastway or Brighton mainline routes, both of which still only have the 377-4 running every single southern service, and that's hardly realistic. There were numerous issues with the scenery and lighting at initial release, with some especially bad lighting issues visible at London Euston Station, although I think these have been fixed. In hindsight, the scenery issues shouldn't have been too surprising, given what I've heard about Rivet's Games being involved with this add-on's development. I've said words to this effect before, and I may as well say it again. I don't understand why Dovetail hasn't severed ties with Rivet at this point, unless Rivet can somehow redeem themselves. As for any issues that are still present on the route, these include, but are certainly not limited to, the poor trackside foliage at South Kenton, the building directly to the west of Harrow and Wealdstone Station being completely wrong, the 1972 tube stock sometimes being absolutely full of passengers on empty shunting moves, a glitch when you're in the cab at Euston and try to press the 8 key for the free roam camera, NPCs still appearing on the fast line platforms at Cheddington and Apsley, where trains do not stop in real life, this collection of NPCs that got stuck at Harrow and Wealdstone, and catenary masts right in front of the buffers on platforms 9 and 10 at London Euston, when they should be set further back towards the ramps. Oh, and that annoying glitch with the clock in the bottom right corner still hasn't been fixed. Basically, The clock will sometimes reappear even after you've pressed the F1 key to turn off the heads-up display, and you still have to press Ctrl 5 to make sure the clock is off. It's not really a bug, but I couldn't help noticing that the man in the office at Watford Junction is still trying to eat that blasted sandwich after all this time. As for the route's performance, it's nothing short of average, even when running the default timetable, never mind the modded timetable. I was getting between 50 and 100 frames per second throughout most of the route, but the frame rate tends to plummet to below 40 FPS in the London area. I can't remember the specs for my computer, but I know that it is capable of running most TSW routes at around 75 FPS or higher. I suspect that the mediocre performance on WCML South could be due to the game's infamously poor optimization. Numerous stations on the in-game route feature working lifts, but Harrow and Wealdstone is not one of them, and I suspect this is because DTG reused the building model from the original Bakerloo line route. Having been there myself, I can confirm that the real station does indeed have working lifts. Why DTG couldn't make a new model of this station, or at the very least, just put a simple out of order sticker over the lift doors is anyone's guess. As for the scenery on the TSW version after the updates, I think it's generally decent despite not being all that familiar with the real area. While I have ridden along the West Coast Main Line in real life, I only went as far north as Cheddington, and I didn't have time to go all the way to Milton Keynes. I was in a hurry upon arrival at Euston Station, so I only had time to take one photograph there. Just for the heck of it, here's that same shot recreated in TSW, and I think I'll take a break from talking for some additional TSW 5 versus real life comparisons. In conclusion, and even after all the updates, I think WCML London to Milton Keynes only deserves a 6 out of 10, and I'm not sure if I would recommend the route to other TSW players or not. While it's good to see freight, intercity, regional and inner suburban passenger services all on the same route, it is still let down by the inclusion of only one Class 350 variant, the route coverage being too short, especially for the Class 390, the Pendolino being sold separately, and the bizarre omission of the branch line from Watford Junction to St Albans Abbey. Surely that wouldn't have been too much extra work for the silly sods from Chatham. In any case, the timetable and enhancement packs for this route are a must for anyone playing this game on a sufficiently powerful PC. They significantly improve what is otherwise just another mediocre route where overall quality is concerned. As for any other improvements that could be made to WCML South by DTG themselves, well, for one thing, the default timetable still needs ironing out. And for another, I want to see them add the 3 missing Class 350 variants, preferably as a free update. Meanwhile, the Class 730 Aventra in West Midlands Railway colours, and the Class 805 and Class 807 Hitachi IETs in Avanti West Coast colours could also be added as official DLC, and I would prefer it if the 805 and 807 were sold in the same pack. As it stands now, the story of the West Coast Main Line London Euston to Milton Keynes route add-on should stand as a prime example of why Dovetail Games should not rush DLC through development, lest we get yet another add-on released with numerous bugs and errors that should never have made it out to customers. If you're interested in driving on any part of the West Coast Main Line in TSW, I recommend buying Just Trains' Preston to Carlisle route instead of Dovetail's London to Milton Keynes.